Alright, hear me out. This is So Says Mr. Thunder. I'm Mr. Thunder. And today is Monday, October the 10th. If this is your first time coming to this podcast, I can't do nothing but say thank you. I appreciate it. This you coming back, man, I appreciate it even more. For whatever reason, however reason you heard about it, that is definitely the reason why you're here. And whether you heard it from me or heard it from somebody else, or you just so happen to find me, here we are. So today I kind of just want to talk about some of the feedback that I've been getting. Because again, the podcast is it's getting a little traction. For those of you just joining, I can only say that, how do I say this? It's a work in progress, right? So there's been a journey that's gone along with this. However, what I can say is I keep getting considerate amounts of positive feedback. Honest feedback too, right? That's a beautiful thing. But the one consistent thing that I constantly land on when people are talking to me about an episode that they listened to, whether they got caught up or if they've been along for the entire ride, and it always lands on this word of therapy. Is the best way that they can describe it. I usually ask the question, what did you get from it? And it's almost like the common denominator is therapy. Anybody that knows me personally, intimately, knows that I've pretty much all my life been anti-therapy, even though therapy in some form or fashion has helped me to be a better man. So there's a give and take to that, but it's not something that I was designing this podcast to do. So that got me to thinking, right? I understand, what God has his anointing on me and what that means for me. And everybody's got their own, right? And I can only push it the way I understand it. And the way I understand it is that it requires you to have some type of influence. You hear all the time, like they talk about influencers, people who have the most followers, social media, and things like that. I never put the two together, like, because I never thought about it, right? This is not something that I am doing because I want people to follow me. I want to be an influencer for people to do certain things or whatever the case may be. I don't really follow that anyways. It's like now I'm the old man, right? But it's crazy. But as I kind of thought about it more, I had to realize that, you can't control how people see you. You can't control the influence that you have on people that causes them to think what they want about you or put you in a certain situation because of who you are and how you talk and things like that. But what you can do is you can understand your influence. Influence being the effect of change, the effect to change or have change. And by definition, it's the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something, or just the effect itself. Now that last part is the part that kind of gets me, right? It goes through the capacity to do all these things or the effect itself, right? Sometimes it's just instant. You can't do nothing about it. It is what it is. And we all have those situations where we have that type of influence on whatever it may be, right? But we have to understand, what that means. What does that look like? I know last week we had Benjetta on and she talked about her name and the life she built with it and what the name means and things like that. The name has influence as well. And, as funny as it may sound, I've heard everything about my last name being Thunder. But it always surprises me like a new thing every time I hear it because, you just never know how people are going to react, right? But that goes in line with some of the things that I'm doing. So as I'm talking about, what's going on and the podcast or just seeking counsel with certain people and put myself in position to have a conversation so that I can, figure something out, have a small therapy session, get some wisdom. Oh man, this past week I got some great wisdom from some people I talked to. Um, I had my brother call me about making a life changing decision for him that that we're gonna appreciate, and I can't wait for that to hear the influence I have on him. To get a call from somebody back home telling me how what I'm doing is positive and how they like it. Talking to neighbors that's listening to it, just people in general realizing that this thing has influence. And I've always tried to understand my influence and my effect in this world. And, sometimes we looking for immediate, satisfaction or recognition. And we miss the opportunity to take the appreciation factor of being the influence. I use my kids. I use people I manage. In the beginning, it's like do as I say, not as I do. And then when you're managing people, it's like I just need you to do your job, follow directions, motivate, as needed. But you don't really want to treat nobody like a child. Sometimes you kind of gotta take that tone. You gotta dumb it down and go basic sometimes. And people don't receive that all the time, and sometimes it's not delivered right. But you really don't know what's right or what's wrong, or how the effect of your influence has gone with that person. Does it affect their character? Does it affect their development? Did it change their behavior, or is it just something that you did that just changed the situation you were in? Like, how does that work? Do you recognize when that happens? But what I had to find out is, even with my kids, I had to sit back and be still on that because my influence can only go so far with them, right? I can pour into them as much as I can about what I know, what I've learned. But at the end of the day, it's their job in this world to figure out what their purpose is. And am I doing what I'm created to do? Because if I'm not doing what I'm created to do by creating influence in them, then I'm not allowing them to be an influence on others. So it's a vicious cycle of you continue to do it wrong. So being able to perfect it by having conversations and seeking counsel has always gotten me to a point where I realize where my influence is going to be the most impactful, and being able to have that conversation. The other day I was at the game and ended up having a conversation with somebody who was able to possibly put me in position to succeed in what I'm trying to do in life. And without going into detail, just being able to have that conversation and realize the influence of what I'm doing has on my own outcome, right, can benefit not only me, but those involved, right? So when it came to, seeing my kids do what they do, that's something I can be proud of. I can say that my kids, I can take credit for my children being good, being a good influence on them. When it came to my employees, seeing them succeed and get promotions and raises and develop into leaders, I had to sit back and watch it and let it happen. Jump in every now and again, but at the end of the day, it was really, their job to complete the task. My responsibility was just to provide the influence as a capacity to have an effect on them, right? It doesn't always go positive. Sometimes it's a negative influence that you may have on somebody. We all got them. but we got to work through those things, right? Crazy part about it is I'm starting to realize that in doing what I'm supposed to do or what I'm created to do, by understanding the impact of my influence and the things that I decide to, you know, take part in, I have to take responsibility for my influence in those situations. And I have to find a way to understand that the influence can effectively change something just by your capacity to have an effect on the character, the development, or the behavior of something or someone, or just the effect itself. Have you been in a situation where you just affected something and you had to realize that it was because of you and your influence and what you brought to the table was the reason for the success? Was it something that you did that caused failure or a delay or just a hard learning experience? Was it because of you? Was it something you influenced? Do you have to change the chance to change by inserting your influence? And do you know when your influence is needed and not needed? These are the things we need to understand when we're having conversations with one another, when we're being honest with everybody. Is we have to understand the influence, what we're inserting into the conversation and the effect that it's going to have on the outcome. I'm more than willing to hear what you got to say. Do you got 10 minutes? Can you give me 10 minutes of your best? Have you been listening to the podcast? Is there something that you'd like to talk about? Is there someone you would like to talk about? I've been getting a lot of suggestions about marriage. If somebody has had some things going on in the marital area and success or progress or decision making, and we'd love to hear from you. I don't know how that works. I'm new at it, so I can't even say what it's supposed to look like. But what I do know is it's something that the people want. So if somebody out there can go ahead and share something about marriage and what it means to you and all those good things, I'm pretty sure that somebody out there is gonna want to hear what you got to say. This is So Says Mr. Thunder. I'm Mr. Thunder. I'm a Native American of this country, and there ain't a damn thing you do about it. Hey, go ahead and like the Instagram page. You can message me on there. If you know me, you can hit me up directly. Understanding that people do what they want to do. People listen to what they want to listen to. And it sounds like people need to hear what's being said on these podcasts. So if you have it, I'd love to hear it. If you can give me 10 minutes of your best, come on here and share that wisdom, because it's knowledge that you applied based upon the influences that you understood behind the effective change that you've had on somebody's character, development, or behavior, or you were just the effect. I holla.